Hey everybody, it's Rob back again with another video, and this is another of the look at the book videos. In this video we're going to be taking a look at Frostgrave's expansion, Perilous Dark, and whether or not you think it's something that you should get for your game. So before we jump into that, this is right after Father's Day weekend. I would like to wish all the fathers out there, I hope you had a happy Father's Day. I had a good time, got to hang out with my kids. My oldest son just went to boot, so he wasn't here. But I did get to talk to him. He called me, so that was pretty special. And I was happy to hear from him. Had a real quiet Father's Day. Just played games with the family. Enjoyed it. So anyway, if you enjoy these videos, please consider subscribing and becoming part of our community. You can also find me on Facebook at Rob's Game Group, all one word. I'll put a link in the description below. And without further ado, let's jump into it and let's see what Perilous Dark is. So Perilous Dark was the last expansion book that Joseph McCullough put out for Frostgrave first edition before the switch over to second edition Frostgrave, which is a much meatier book than first edition. And don't get me wrong, I loved first edition. First edition was fantastic. Played it for a long time and really enjoyed the lore that you were given little by little in the expansion books, like, you know, Thaw the Lich Lord and into the breeding pits and so on and so forth. We got little by little more bits of the lore of the city and the areas of the city and what they were like, and monsters and things that are loose in the city. And that's all fantastic. I love that about it. I've said multiple times it would make a great role-playing game, and I really want to sit down and do this at some point. But Perilous Dark was the last of the first edition expansions. So is it usable with second edition? Yes. All of the first edition books are usable with second edition. And there's even a section in the second edition rulebook in the back that goes expansion by expansion, even the card expansions like Ulterior Motives, and explains any changes that needed to be made in those books to use with the second edition rules. Most of them, not surprisingly, are very, very slim, very minute. And that's because there's not a lot of changes between first and second edition. There is a lot of changes, but it's a lot of little things that changed. Like Ulterior Motives, that card deck, which gives your wizards secret agendas, basically, during the game, and can really add a lot to your Frostgrave games. The only thing you need to change in that is you use the new rules for treasure placement instead of what's in that box set. And that's cool. Perilous Dark, however, requires no changes between first and second edition. So if you have all the old first edition stuff, don't be scared to jump into second edition, because it's all still usable. And you get the updated book with more scenarios, cleaner rules. It's really worth getting. Now, Perilous Dark came to me on Father's Day as kind of a Father's Day gift from Haley, but also mainly because it's something that we can both use and get use out of during our Frostgrave games, and we play a lot of Frostgrave together. So, what is it? What's in it? And is it something that you need or will want? So unlike Thaw the Lich Lord, which is a campaign that takes you just through a bunch of scenarios and tells a story, and there's nothing wrong with that, that's fantastic, Perilous Dark is a toolbox of things to use. So I'll just read from the back of the book, if I can get my old man eyes to focus this morning. There are many tales of the frozen city, and not all of them tell of battles between rival wizards. Often the greatest adventures are those that pit wizard and his trusty warband against the myriad perils found amidst the ruins of Felstad. which is the original name of Frostgrave. This new supplement for Frostgrave presents rules for playing solo and co-op games, in which the focus shifts from the feuds of wizards to exploring the city, unlocking its mysteries, and surviving what is discovered. With guidelines for scaling game difficulty, dungeon crawls, monster generation, and more, as well as 10 scenarios demonstrating these options, this volume offers players everything they need to venture alone or with allies into Frostgrave. Why should wizards fight amongst themselves? There is plenty of treasure for all, and the frozen city is enemy enough. So, what all does come in it? Well, it's interesting the way that Mr. McCullough wrote this book, because he gives you a toolbox of different things that I'm going to go over that you can use, and it's very plug and play. If you like doing this, add this to your game. If you like doing this, add this, or you don't have to. I love these kinds of expansions because I love getting new options for the game. With each of the options that he presents, he not only tells you this is how you would implement it in the game, and here are some scenarios to use it like that, but he also kind of brings you into the game design process with thoughts behind why the expansion is designed the way it is, or the optional rule is designed the way it is. Other ways that you might do it that may not work as well. And kind of a guideline on creating, every one of them has a guideline on kind of creating your own scenarios. So you have the 10 scenarios in here, but each of the options, you're granted information on designing your own scenarios and telling your own stories using those options. And that's really cool because Frostgrave, yes, it's a war game. It's a skirmish war game. But it is all about telling stories and the narrative of it. And it's not necessarily all about, fighting PvP. The game basically has 3 modes: solo, co-op, and PvP. And with this book, you have access to the rules on how to do all 3. Now, me and Haley play a lot of PvP Frostgrave. However, you don't have to. You can team up together and play, which is kind of what we want to do with it. Or you can go solo. And everything is presented here to show you how to do it and what changes you need to make. So for instance, if you want to play these scenarios or other scenarios from other books or scenarios you make up, the guidelines are in here in the very first chapter, the very first part of the book, that explain to you how to do that playing solo and how you would build your team. So we start off with one of my favorite pieces of artwork in the book. You have the introduction, and then the next page is the basics. And I love that art. Those skeletons just coming out of that snowy mist is just awesome. Excuse me. But we have the basics, and again, like all my look at the books, I'm not going to read the entire book to you. I'm just going to kind of tell you what's in here and then suggest that you either buy or don't buy the book. So, that being said, let me be clear that I do not go out of my way to give bad reviews on gaming products. Most of my look at the books, you will find, are very positive reviews, and it's not because I'm being provided it by a company, so I'm giving a positive review. It is more that it's a book that I've looked through or read and I've gotten very excited about, and I want to tell you about it. Does that mean that every gaming product that I've picked up is like that? No. There is a couple I got on the shelf that I bought just because they sounded cool, the art looked cool, but I was not impressed with them after I got them. I am going to do a look at the book on them, because even though it's not something that appeals to me, it may be something, a game, role-playing game or miniature game booklet that appeals to you or your gaming group. And that's fine, because just remember that these videos are not sponsored. I don't make money off of these. These are simply, I do these for fun, and I'm expressing my opinion on this. Like I had a guy in one of my videos, I think it was a Frostgrave video, who commented and said something about, because I had said in the video that it was neat to be able to kind of tell a story for everybody in the warband, and he was like, "Oh, that's not a good idea to do that because they die off really quick." Well, from that aspect, that's true. You wouldn't want to write a background for everybody like that. Again, I still need to do our house rules video because we kind of do our house rules a little different. Our guys, when they get a dead result, storyline wise, they don't actually die. We still have to pay the full price to get another version of that guy or gal. But we consider them being, like us paying to have that character resurrected. So we could, in our gaming group, if we wanted to, give each guy a name and a backstory and all that. But what I meant by that, when I said you could give each character kind of their own little story, wasn't necessarily writing a background for the character, but more so in the customization of the models and the painting, how you do them. Because unlike a big war game where you've got 20 guys that all look alike in this unit, 20 guys that all look alike in this unit, you have 10 guys total in your warband. And those 10 guys, each one of them is mostly going to look different. Each guy is going to have his own different bits and bobs on his garb and the way you paint them up and the way you do the base. To me, each one of those that miniature tells his own little story when you look at him, because they're all individual miniatures. None of them are part of a big block of guys. Not that there's anything wrong with that kind of gaming, but that's not what this is. So that's what I mean by everybody kind of has their own story. And I probably word that wrong. Everybody has their own look, their own feel to them, basically. So again, that's something that just we do, because I'm not going to go buy a new miniature every time one of my guys dies. Even if we did play it rules as written, I would just scratch that guy and pay for a new one anyway. But let's see, we look at the basics in here, and getting started, it talks about how you would build your warband solo and cooperative. And solo, building your warband for solo adventures is the same as the main rule book. Nothing changes. And it's done that way so that you can go in, play solo games, and then take that same band and come out and play regular games with them. Now, co-op is a little bit different. In co-op, let's say me and Haley are playing a co-op campaign. We would both choose a wizard, and then we would both choose up to 4 dudes or dudettes to go with our wizard, but no apprentice. And starting out, instead of the 400 gold, and you're not buying an apprentice, you get 200 gold, but all 4 of your dudes could be specialists. Not that you can afford that right away, but as you're playing the campaign, you can upgrade all 4 of your guys to specialists. So after a few games, you could have 8 specialists on the field if you're playing a co-op game with somebody, and 2 wizards who more than likely are going to be of 2 different schools of magic, so it's going to give you a much higher variety in the spell casting that you can do. But they have rules. He has rules in here for how to build your teams like that. Now, he also has a section called What This Book Doesn't Do. And he talks about how people will there will be some people who are expecting the book to let you take your warband and play it against another warband that is controlled by the game, and how ultimately that is virtually impossible to do in rules. You could play against yourself, but you're always, even if you try not to, what you're thinking and what your other warband is capable of. So you're not going to always make the optimal choices. So that's not what this game is meant to do, or this expansion. This expansion is meant to give you the ability to go solo or co-op with a buddy, and basically the two of you form a normal size warband. And one of the things that you do in that is, in co-op, is everybody gets the total experience between the two wizards, which is gonna, you're not having to split it, so it's going to help you level up at a normal pace. One of the other things that you do in co-op, and the reason for this, again, it's not hard and fast. You can choose whether to do it or not. Like when you pick up a treasure in a normal game of Frostgrave, it cuts your movement in half. Well, the reason behind that is to slow you down and give the other player a chance to try to get that treasure from you. You don't really need to do that when you're playing in co-op mode. So it suggests doing away with that completely. And when a character miniature picks up a treasure, they move at normal speed, because there's also rules in here for implementing basically a clock, a timer on the game, so many rounds to get in, get out, and also adding things into the game that make it not just about the treasure. I mean, let's face it, you're always going to go after the treasure, because, gold is gold, magic items are magic items, and you want them. But there's also the aspect of, if that's all you ever do, the game is going to get stale after a while. So there are suggestions in here from Mr. McCullough on how to implement things into the scenarios as you design them that are more important than just the treasure. So yeah, you might have some guys focused on treasure, but you might have this evil statue that's animating skeletons, and it has to be taken down, and the ways you might go about that. So let's see what else it does. There's a section that talks about the creatures and the level of difficulty for the game and how to scale it, or as close as possible. And then you have there's a section on spells which talks about certain spells need to be adjusted, like Circle of Protection, Invisibility, Monstrous Form, and Wall. All need to have a different role for how they end. They need to be easier to end those spells when you're playing co-op or solo. So on a 1 to 10 roll at the end of every turn, the spell dissipates and you would have to cast it again. The creatures also have a different priority phase, or breakup in the phases, in solo or co-op games. So your phase would go like this. You would have your wizard phase between the two wizards. Then you would have creature phase 1. Any creature, and this consists of any creatures that have a fight of +5 or health 20. Then you have your apprentice phase. Then you have creature phase 2, which is all the ones that didn't go in creature phase 1. And then you would end with the soldier phase. And this splits it up, because otherwise you would constantly, all of your guys would go and get the drop on everything that the creatures were going to do. We see this in Frostgrave too, especially in the Dead or Alive stuff where you play solo bounty hunting missions. There's a very similar breakdown in that. And that's pretty cool. It also, like, he has this breakdown in here, but you don't have to break it up that way. If you don't have creatures that are +5 fight, but you have a lot of creatures you want to break up, you could simply say, okay, well, all of the zombies are going in creature phase 2, but the ghouls are faster, so they're going in creature phase 1. So regardless of what their stats are, you can break it up by group if you want to. Let's see. And then we come to, now that's 15 pages. Is it 15? Yeah, 15 pages in. We come to chapter 1, Limited Time and Unlimited Monsters, with some more fantastic art right there. And what this covers is methods and time limitation, like putting either a timer or round limit on the game to really put the pressure on the wizard and their warbands to get in and get out. Random monster spawning. So you don't want to just have monsters spawning from the same point all the time, coming in off the edges. but it gives you an idea of how to break up generation charts to spawn your own monsters and to put spawn points on the table, so you're not sure where they're going to come from each turn. Then we close that chapter out with the carrying treasure rule that I was talking about. But we close that chapter out with a group of scenarios. Now, the scenarios in here can be played as one-offs, but they also, all the way through the book, form a full campaign that tells a pretty interesting story about an ancient mythical weapon shop in Frostgrave that you found out about in your investigating. And I'm not going to go through all the setup for them. I will tell you that all the scenarios in solo and co-op play like this are designed to be played on a 2.5 by 2.5 board. So you will have to reduce the size of your board some for playing like that. But scenario 1 is writhing fumes, and it gives you the setup for it and everything there. Special rules for it. The writhing fumes encounter table, so each of these has their own encounter table. And now each scenario is designed as you were playing it solo, but it also has the modifications for playing co-op in each scenario as well. And then, of course, it ends with treasure and experience and how they work in each scenario. So that was the first one. The second one is Ishur's Weapon Shop. And it has the same thing, same stuff. And then scenario 3, the Dog Days, where a new monster is introduced and you have to deal with that. Chapter 2 brings us to traps and obstacles. Now, traps specifically are dealt with in the Into the Breeding Pits book, and it has a very specific way that it's done with a dice roll and a chart of traps. This tells you how to kind of create your own so that you keep it fresh and it's not just the same trap over and over and over. Each trap would be individual on the chart and how it goes off. But this works for traps that are set in out across the board, or if you're playing in a dungeon, either one. And it tells you you can use the trap stuff from Into the Breeding Pits if you want to. Then it talks about obstacles, which is something we all usually have on the table anyway. And then we go into scenario 4, the Reaver's Crypt. And again, we have our setup, special rules, our trap table that you roll on in this one. And then, again, cooperative modifications. Scenario 5, the Warrens. And not the Warrens from the Conjuring movies. Scenario 6, Hunting Ground. And then we come to chapter 3, the Unknown. Now this is an interesting group of stuff that you can add into the game with clue markers and room cards. So it's a way of having not only your treasure on the table, but you could also have markers out that are clue markers. Like, for instance, each one of them is a roll on a chart. And when they come into contact, they can miniature can investigate the clue. And it might be, page 6 from this book, and you need to collect all 8 pages or something to be able to cast a spell to shut down this portal, different stuff like that. It really adds to the role-playing investigative part of the game, and I thought that was really neat. And then you have room cards, which is a way for you to set up basically a random set of cards that will generate things in the rooms as you're exploring them. And that's really cool because nobody knows what's coming. Then we open with scenario 7, the Doorway. Same setup as the other scenarios. Scenario 8 is Fire and Ash. We go to chapter 4, Dungeon Crawls. Dungeon crawls work a lot like the room cards. It tells you how to set them up and do them as dungeon cards. So it's, you're exploring the dungeon and nobody knows what's in each room until you get in there. Randomly generating dungeons. And then scenario 9, the Vaults. And then we have one final scenario in here, which is, I love the name of, Dungeons Deep. So after the scenario, we have a section on new treasure. And I'm not going to go through all of the new treasure because there's quite a bit of it, but it tells you how to supplement these rolls for rolls on the regular charts for Frostgrave if you want to. But I will tell you that this is the one that has the Book of the Werewolf in it, and you can use that if you can get your hands on it. You can use the Book of the Werewolf to actually hire a werewolf soldier for your warband. So I'm hoping to do that because I got a really cool werewolf model I'd like to add in with my warband. Let's see, we go through that to bestiary, which is small but adds several new creatures. We have the Ballista 2, which is a construct. We have the Borak, which is a cross between a gnoll and a minotaur. We have the new Chrono Hounds, which are these hounds that shift through time as you're fighting them, so that's really cool. We have the Hell Crow, the Magmite, the Mana Worm, the Matriarch, the Planar Lurker, which was created by Troy Willis, and it's a pretty nasty piece of work. The Reaver Whites, and then it finishes out with large and small Vapor Snakes, which are all featured at one point or another in the different scenarios in this. So, as you can see, there is a lot of plug-and-play utility to this book. A lot of neat stuff you can do. It's not just, hey, play the scenarios in here. Each group of scenarios that introduces one of these aspects, whether it's room cards or whether it's the clue tokens or whatever, each one has scenarios built around that, but it also tells you how to design your own scenarios around it so that you can just continue and make the story your own. And that's really what we're doing here, is we are driving a narrative with Frostgrave. So I've really enjoyed my read through the book. It's fantastic. I'm very happy to have my hands on it and add it to my Frostgrave collection. And I'm looking forward to, I'm probably going to try some solo games, but I'm definitely looking forward to playing some co-op with Haley. We've talked about that a bit. I'm not sure if I'm going to bring another dwarf warband, or if I have another warband I've been working on, so I may just bring that to our co-op game. But either way, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. So, this retails for $25, which is about what you can get it for on Amazon and everything too. If you like Frostgrave and you want to add some different variations of stuff to your game, some of this you can add without doing the co-op or the solo. You don't have to have that to add in, like the clue markers and obstacles and stuff. That's really cool stuff that you could add to any Frostgrave game. So anytime we get a toolbox book like this, I think it's fantastic if it comes with useful stuff, and this one absolutely comes with useful stuff. So yeah, I do highly recommend picking this one up. If you don't play Frostgrave, I'm not sure why you would have even clicked on the video, but if you like Frostgrave, then yeah, I think it's a must-have. That is my thoughts on this look at the book with Perilous Dark. I will be back soon with another video. Again, subscribe, hit the thumbs up. For all of our new subscribers, I'm really happy that you guys have joined us. Thank you very much. And until next time, my friends, good gaming and good luck.